Hey guys, welcome to programming lesson number 3, which is variables. So before we even get started into any of the programming for this topic, guys, I always want to make sure we're all on board and we know what a variable even is. So let me open up Paint. But you guys have all used variables before, trust me, in math, of course. So this is a reminder. Let's say we have x, right? X is the name of our variable. X is equal to 5. So the value of x is 5. That's how we would read it. And so we're declaring a variable called x, and its value is equal to 5. So just remember that we're declaring a variable, its name is x, and its value is 5. So that's how you would read this. And second of all, well, let's see how we can use a variable. This is a reminder you can input variables into different equations. So let's say we have an equation x plus 2x, and if we substitute the value of x for all the x's up here, we get 5 plus 2 times 5 is equal to 15. So nothing complicated, just remembering that you can create variables. Variables can have a value assigned to them, and you can substitute the variable's value for where it appears in. Alright. My bad, guys, but let's continue. So let me go to my project in Visual Studio. Let me open it up. So here. Alright. And let me open up the class file. Alright. So if you guys if you guys remember to my previous lessons, I said that we're going to be doing all of our programming in between these two middle brackets right here. So let's just go in between them by clicking enter right here. And that's good. Alright, so where do we even start now? So, well, we have to create a variable in the first place, right? So, if you guys remember, the way I read out a variable to you is very important. Let me just make sure you guys know it again. So x is equal to 5. We're declaring a variable. Its name is x, and it's equal to 5. Let me say that again. We're declaring a variable. Its name is x, and its value is 5. So how about let's do that on our programming? How would we create a variable x and set its value to 5? So let's go back here and let's start typing. So remember, we're declaring a variable, its name is x. So let's put x as our name, and it's equal to 5. So it's as simple as space equals space 5. And remember, semicolon after every statement. So we're actually almost done to declaring a variable in programming, but there's something in programming that is different from the way we declare variables in math, and that is that you have to specify a variable type. And let me just show you guys what I mean. So let me just type this out again. X is equal to 5. Alright, so that's what we have so far in our program, right? But what a computer needs to know what type of variable something is. So right now, we haven't specified any type for our variable, so the computer doesn't even know what we're trying to store inside this. So in programming, there's different types of variables, which I'm going to also show you guys. But 5 is an integer, right? So we need to tell the computer that x is an integer. So it's actually super simple. All we have to do is type in int before. So this is how we declare an integer variable in programming. Int space x equal to 5. And it's really that simple, guys. We actually just declared a variable in programming. So how do we read this? So we're declaring a variable. Its name is x. Its type is an integer, and it's equal to 5. So x is an integer, and it's equal to 5. It's really that simple. That's really how you read it. That's how you create variables in programming. So 3 parts to creating variables. So type, name, then value. So first the type, integer is the type, the name is x, and then the value, set it equal to a value. Let's do that on our actual program now. So int, and you see it turns blue, int x is equal to 5. And that's it, guys. We really just created a variable in programming. This is your very first variable that you guys just created in C#. So hopefully you guys feel proud of yourselves so far. You've already taken a next step from outputting in the last lesson. So let's just try to declare a few more integer variables. So remember, step 1, the type. So int, that's how you say an integer in programming, int. Int, well, let's just say my integer. So remember, second step, name, that's our name, and that's equal to whatever integer value we want, negative 49. So that's it, we just created another variable. It's really not that difficult in my opinion. Well, so it's quite simple. So remember, we're declaring a variable, its name is my integer, its type is integer, and its value is negative 49. So how about we actually display the value of our variable to the console. So if you remember, last time I said that to display to the console, we want to do console.writeLine, and then in between the parentheses, we want to put in the thing we want to output to the console. So remember, console.writeLine parentheses semicolon. So how are we going to get the value of my integer out to the console? So before, what we were doing is we were putting in quotation marks, then we were typing whatever we wanted, right? But when we're dealing with variables, you don't have to put in the quotation marks for them. All you have to do is put in its name. So watch this. So just type in, let's output x. No errors, you see. So how do we read this part? So console.writeLine the value of x. So what do you guys think it's going to print out? So remember, I said console.writeLine the value of x. What is the value of x? 5. So what we should see is 5 appear in the console, and let's check that out right now. Remember, Control F5 to start the program. Whoa, look at that. 5. Yay, we just did 5. It shows up, it works. So this is called referencing a variable. Oh, my bad, but this is called referencing a variable. All we did was substitute its value right here. So we reference x with its name. That's really all. So that's how we reference a variable. That's how we get its value. All you have to do is put down its name. So let's do that right here. Let's reference x right here. X semicolon. Well, you see, we get an error because the computer doesn't like that. Well, the program doesn't like that you're just doing nothing. You called it for no reason, and it doesn't like that. So you have to do something to it. So how about let's change its value? Let's change it to 7 or something. So how we change the value of a variable is, remember, let's reference it. How do we reference it? We put down the name. Then we do whatever we want to. So we want to set it equal to another value. So let's do equals 13 and semicolon. Well, we did it. Dang. So in this line, all we did was say x is now equal to 13. So what do you guys think it's going to output right now here? It should output 13 because up here we declare it, and before we actually send it to the console, we changed its value to 13. So we should get 13. You see? Hey, 13. That's nice. So that's how we can reference and change the value of a variable. And just to show you guys it's changed, I'm gonna output its value before it was changed. Right line X. So right now it's going to output its current value. Its current value is 5. After that we change it to 13. Then we're gonna output its new value. 5 and 13. Hey. So we just learned how to declare variables. We learned how to reference variables, and we learned how to output the values of variables. So already quite a big step taken into our programming journey. We're almost actually done with variables. Now all I'm going to do is go over different types of variables, because integers are boring. Like, you're not always gonna be using integers. So let's see what other types of variables we can have. Alright. Alright, so I'll just put an integer for reference. Let's say int my integer is equal to 3. Alright, so what else can we have? What other variables are there? Well, what if we want a decimal? I want to store a decimal into a variable. So a decimal type is called a float. So you have to type in, remember, step 1, type float. It's kind of a strange name for a decimal, but that's just what it calls it. I don't exactly know why myself, but all I know is that that's what it's called for a decimal. Float. Let's name it my float. Set its value to a decimal value we want. Well, you see, we got an error right here. That's because with the float, you have to put an F after the value. So you see, it's a decimal. We're almost correct, but you just need an F at the end. That's letting the program know that this is a float. This value is a float. So remember, so we have a variable called myFloat. Its type is float, and its value is 3.93457F. Well, not the F. Well, just 3.93457. So that's how you can make a decimal in programming. Let me try outputting that. Console.WriteLine. Let's put the value of my float. Control F5. 3.93457. Great. Next, we have something called a double, and it's practically the same thing as a float. It's a decimal as well, but it just can store larger amounts of numbers. So like, well, yeah, it just stores a larger amount of numbers. So like, let's say if my float stored 1 million, my double could store like 100 million. So that's practically all it is. Most people, well, it just depends what you want to do. But if you're going for smaller numbers, you should use floats, because you don't want to allocate that much memory for no reason, you know. So just use floats mostly. But sometimes you just do need to use doubles, because you just need that big numbers. But yeah, just a double is another decimal. So my double equals -38.384. And for double, you don't need to put an F or anything. You can just put in the decimal in itself. Let's try outputting the value of my double. Alright, and Control F5 to run the program. Hey, 38.384. It's nice. Let's continue. Uh-oh. Oh, never mind. Okay. So next, what do we have? We have short. A short is just a smaller integer. So if an integer could store 10 as a number, a short can only store up to 3. So let's say my short is equal to 340. Long. Then we have a long. My long is equal to some long number L. So a long is just a bigger version of an integer. A short is a shorter version of an integer. Big is a bigger version of an integer. So a short can store less than an integer. A long can store more than an integer. Alright. Then next we have something called a string. String, my string. And a string can store like anything. It's like, I say it's like words or text, so I can say my string. Well, this is being said from the variable my string. So that's what a quotation means. Well, the quotation marks mean that this is a string. Whatever is in between this, it's a string. So you can put anything you want in a string. You can have numbers, just anything you want. You can put anything you want in a string. So I used to describe it as like text, anything you want in it. And if I output right on, oh, my string. So Control 5. You see we have what we put right here inside here. And that's a string. So integer stores an integer, float stores a float, float stores a decimal, double stores a decimal. Excuse me. A short stores a shorter version of an integer. Long is a longer version of integer. A string is practically anything you want. And when you do console.write line, all it does is output the value of what's in between the parentheses. So if I do console.write 3, what is the value of 3? It's just 3. So output the value of, so that's all console.write1 does. It outputs the value of whatever is in between the parentheses to the console. So what is the value of this string called hello? Well, this string that has hello, the value is just itself. If you just put anything you want in there, its value is itself. So if I do that, its value is just itself. But what if I put something called what if I put a variable called my integer? What is its value? It's not going to output my integer, it's going to output its value, which is 3. And that's really all there is to variables, guys. Like, that's it, that's all for variables. So let me just do a short recap, because like, might be a lot for some people. So in programming, you have to, when you declare a variable, you have to specify a type. So the 3 steps to creating a variable are its type, so let's just say float, its name, let's say anything we want, and not a number, random variable, and its value, set up what we want to. So type, name, and value. And we can change its value by putting down its name and setting it equal to our new value. So this is called referencing. This is referencing a variable. This is declaring a variable. Declaring is when you create the variable. Referencing is when you use it for whatever reason. And that is all there is now to variables, guys. We learned how to declare a variable, and we learned how to reference a variable. You reference it by its name, and we learned how to set it equal to a new value. So thank you guys for all watching lesson number 3, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully it was understandable to you guys, and see you in the next lesson.